Hi, we're back live at Percona Live 2023. Right now, I have Jignesh Shah. Is that the right way to say it?
Yep.
Okay. He's from AWS, and my little note here says that AWS and Percona are working together, so we'll get that in a minute. I got to admit, at the predecessor of the show several years ago, I was off the far end of the conference, and I'm doing certification exams. And someone says, well, yeah, Amazon's here talking about their elastic blocks. And I go, you mean like a stress relief toy? No, they'll actually rent you disk space. So I thought that was weird. So now that I've kind of ruined the idea of your product, tell me about AWS, Percona working together and what you do.
Sure. All right. So I'll start with my introduction. My name is Jignesh Shah. I'm the GM for RDS open source engines, which primarily covers RDS for MySQL, MariaDB, and Postgres. In my role, I actually manage the engineering team to make sure that we give out a managed database experience for our customers, which attracts customers in a way of like doing the undifferentiated things related to deployments, patching, backups, upgrades, everything to help them automate it out and give them the experience where they can then just focus on their business needs of updating the data, managing the data, and make sure that they are more agile in actually linking that data back to their real application needs. So that's the basic premise. On top of that, what we aim to do behind the scenes is also work with upstream communities related to MySQL, MariaDB, and Postgres. And the way we do that is we understand how our customers are using the product. We understand what works best and what have challenges, and then work with upstream to kind of like improve those experiences related to the requests that we have heard from the customers, issues that we encounter while managing their databases, and at the same time, be creative and innovative to look for the next big things that customers can do with these databases on AWS. As part of that, we interact heavily with the Postgres community. We are hacker mailing list. We even hire people who have great background in the database internals and do joint development with the community by interacting with through the right mechanisms of the community. We do the same with MariaDB too. We work with their foundations. We contribute fixes out there. And lately, you may have seen, there has been a huge increase in contributions from Amazon, both to MariaDB and Postgres, and we want to kind of do that for all the data products that we rely on open source.
Very cool. I know a lot of folks, or a lot of Percona customers are on AWS, and it's interesting that they can come to you and say, I want MySQL's MySQL or Percona's MySQL, and you're very accommodating and you do great things there. If I'm on-prem right now and I realize that I need to get into the cloud, how do I do it?
Sure. So there are three ways you could typically do that. You could do it in a self-managed way using EC2, which is probably the most simplest thing if you're using a data center to kind of do the equivalent of that. And then the next thing we provide is the managed database offering of the same bits from the community that we have, which is Amazon RDS. And then we also provide an version, which is Amazon Aurora, which gives you a little bit more features specific to performance improvements, scalability improvements, and features integrating it into tighter to kind of get to that same level of commercial database expectations that many people migrating from commercial databases and what their needs are. So these are the three ways people can actually come to Amazon using one of those three ways. What we find is different people have different needs, and one of these three methods actually meets their needs pretty cleanly as such, because there may be hey, I want to spend more time on actually working on the business side. The managed database offering is great for you. I'm way too deep into the databases. I want the full flexibility of that. Yep. EC2 is probably good for you. And then hey, I have needs where I need to do things beyond what the managed database can provide me, but I'm also kind of interested in like migrating my commercial database offerings. And this is where like we think like the Amazon Aurora provides more than just the open source version of it, catering to that need out there. To kind of give you an example, Amazon Aurora recently actually published Babelfish as a project for the Postgres compatibility, which can speak like the SQL Server interface out there, helping people move from SQL Server to Postgres.
Very cool. I know back the first time I was with my first professional job and I wanted more disk space, I had to fill out a purchase rec, go out and get requests for bids, bring those in, get the top 3, put them through the submission, and 10, 12 months later, I got a new disk that I had to bolt onto a DEC KS 2020. It's amazing to me now that I want more disk space. I just click a button and it's automatically there. Where are we going to be 3 years from now? Well, artificial intelligence going, aha, he's thinking about more disk space. We ought to provision something for him.
I think things will just improve based on the experience needs of the users. Like some of the things we've already heard and provided is, I don't want to monitor the disk space myself. So can you give me an auto scan of the storage itself? And we now actually have that option in RDS that we have support, which we call as the auto scale storage disk size. So where it looks at like some of your usage pattern, and when you cross like an 80% or 85% of your used disk space, it will auto increase it to the next size that would fit based on usage of the disk space. So I think features like that will continue to evolve with AI ML technologies helping that learnings from the usage pattern. I think things will evolve more to kind of like help out with the experience for customers looking from the managed offering providers. The way to kind of like, look at the value benefits for the customer is important, like not really just for the technology perspective, but what they want to get out of that technology. So I think what we are trying to do is focus more on the real ask and the real pain points of the customer and see how we can address them. Then we use the technologies that would best help us to kind of meet that needs as such.
Okay, and you scale from the mom and pop store all the way up to the Fortune 100s and all that?
Our aim is to kind of like cater the wide spectrum of database users, right from, say, the developers who are just writing their first app to talk with the database, to people who are using primarily the AWS for their complete infrastructure needs, as well as like, people who are actually moving to cloud with their mission in critical databases on RDS and like, trying to do more complex things like, figure out the next challenges of like, how to kind of like manage it for larger databases, bigger databases, how to approach on shardings and so on.
Cool. Well, anything else you want to mention that, oh, by the way, you really need to know this, or this is something we just came out with that no one knows about, or?
Oh, that's cool. You give me the opportunity. So I do want to talk about like something that we recently announced at Percona Live yesterday, which is PL Rust, which is an open source project that is now integrated with RDS for Postgres, which would allow you to write function calls in Rust. And the way that feature works is you could now create a Postgres function with a Rust code within it. It will compile it and actually compile it to native performance on the storage. And since the data is close by, the functions will execute pretty fast, as close as to speeds you would expect from C compilation.
Yeah.
And then you could use PGTLE, which is the trusted language extension, and package whole as an extension that you can actually ship or give it to other people to use it too.
Very cool. So you do all these little stored programs in Rust now, and they run it at machine speed?
Machine speed.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much for coming by, and thank you for sponsoring Percona Live, and we hope you have a great show.
And thank you to Percona for giving us this opportunity to be along with you out here at this conference. It has been a great show.
And hopefully we'll have you back in 2024.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.